Welcome to the Stay Grounded podcast, brought to you by JavaPresse Coffee Company. My name is Raj Jana, and I'm the Chief Brewing Officer here at JavaPresse, where we help people make daily happiness a priority using the coffee we love. I interview people from all walks of life to discuss happiness, success, fulfillment, and ways to infuse it all into daily life. I want to dissect different thought processes and turn them into powerful insights that empower you to stay grounded and make daily happiness and fulfillment a reality. So thanks for joining me today. Now, let's get to grinding. Welcome to another episode 15 to be exact, of the Stay Grounded podcast. Oh man, this week's guest is going to... I'm just going to take a deep breath before I get into this because I'm so excited to introduce this person. So this week's guest is somebody that I've personally studied and looked up to and have been inspired by on my journey to create JavaPresse and just a better life for myself. I've been following him for a while. His book changed my life, and it's also changed the lives of millions of people around the world. This week's guest is Hal Elrod. So for those of you who don't know who Hal is the author of the best-selling book Miracle Morning. He's somebody who has beat death twice to live and tell the tale. Everything from horrific car accidents to beating cancer and just such a positive, upbeat guy. I mean, I'm really inspired by him, and Miracle Morning was truly the foundation for us creating JavaPresse and doing what we do with it today. So I'm super excited to get started with him. But before we do, I would love if you could leave a rating, a review, and for you to subscribe to the show on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, Google Play, whatever you listen on. I would love for you to subscribe. Your subscription and your review helps me learn more about what you like, and it helps others who don't know anything about the show come into our world and be a part of this amazingness we're creating. So anyways, let's get started. Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Stay Grounded podcast. I'm your host, Raj Jana. And oh man, am I excited, beyond excited to bring on today's guest. This is an individual that I personally look up to and pulled a lot of inspiration from as I was starting my own company and building out my own positive habits and routines. So without further ado, Hal Elrod. Mr. Hal, how are you?
Raj, man, I'm doing well, and I love your enthusiasm, so I'm ready to try to match it. So looking forward to this, buddy.
Well, I just by the way you just responded to me, I'm super pumped. Before we get started into everything, I'd love I'm sure there's many of our listeners who actually have read some of your work or have been involved in a lot of things you've done. But for those who aren't, I'd love for you to just introduce yourself and give a quick synopsis of who you are, what you do, and what you're about.
Yeah, absolutely. And I warned you before the podcast, I'm long-winded, so I'll do my best here to be concise when I give this overview, and then we could dive in any direction that you want. But here's kind of the chronology. When I was 15 years old, I started DJing on the radio, and I got the nickname Yo Pal Hal. That was my radio moniker. Yo Pal Hal on 97.1 FM. So that's kind of how I started. And then at 19, I started selling Cutco cutlery and never thought I'd be a salesperson, but a friend of mine introduced me to the company, and it turned into a 6-year career where I became a Hall of Fame sales rep for Cutco.
Wow.
And then in the midst of that, about a year and a half into my Cutco career, I was hit head on by a drunk driver driving home from giving a speech at a conference. And I was hit head on at 70 to 80 miles an hour, and my car was sent into oncoming traffic, and another car hit me right in my driver's side door at 70 miles an hour, and I actually broke 11 bones in an instant. I was clinically dead for 6 minutes at the scene of the accident, and 6 days later I came out of a coma to be told I would never walk again, and just kind of decided that was not the fate I was going to accept. And a week after I came out of the coma, the doctor said they thought I was in denial because I was so happy and positive and joking around and making them laugh. And they said that was just not normal for a young man being told he's never going to walk again. But I believed I could walk again. And a week later, they came in with routine x-rays and they said, we don't know how to explain this, but your body is healing so quickly. We're actually going to let you take your first step tomorrow in therapy.
Wow.
So I went from never walking again to 3 weeks after the crash, after I broke my femur and my pelvis and all this. And then kind of fast forward to very recently, 2012, I wrote a book called The Miracle Morning. And that has changed more people's lives than I ever thought it would, or really ever even imagined it could.
Yeah.
And it's being practiced by roughly 500,000 people around the world in over 100 countries. And that is kind of my life's work. And then most recently, about a year ago, I was diagnosed with a very rare aggressive form of cancer. I was given a 30% chance of living, which, for all of us mathematicians, that's a 70% chance of dying. Not very good. And and I had to apply, similar mindsets as I did when I had my car accident. Of course, my first thought was I looked up to the sky and was like, God, what am I? Like I already died in a car crash. What in the hell am I supposed to learn now? Yeah. And granted, the answer was a lot. And so that's been the last year of my life has been the most challenging and really the best year of my life in terms of growth. And about 3 months ago, I was given a clean bill of health, and I beat those odds and cancer free. So that leads us up to today.
Hal, just before I say anything, congratulations.
Thank you,
I'm
brother.
beyond happy for you and for all the lives you've changed. I'm so glad that you're healthy, happy, and here with us, man. So, I have so many questions to ask. So I'll start with, you've got, for lack of better words, you've beaten death twice. Or the odds have been against you twice in your life, and you're sitting here today. What? And I want to talk about your first experience, where you went from never being able to walk again to within a week being able to walk, or at least start recovering or on the path back. What can you go through your mindset at the time? What were you telling yourself? What type of because I imagine there's probably a lot of negativity around you.
Sure.
And just the circumstances or people looking at you and kind of either feeling sorry or, how did you sort of manifest this reality for yourself when it seemed like the odds were all against you?
So it stems back, and what I'll share with you guys and gals, everybody listening, is this is one of the most valuable lessons that I've ever learned in my life. And I share it anytime I give a speech. I always share this because it's been so powerful. And the lesson is around, I'll kind of share with you how this came about. The doctors thought I was in denial. I mentioned that. And they called my parents in. I was 20 years old. They called my parents in and they sat them down and they said, we want to talk about Hal's mental and emotional state. We believe he's delusional, in denial. This is actually common, they said, for accident victims that are being told, that have a fate such as they're never going to walk again, that they can't accept their reality. So they just check out. Like they just kind of, just throw their hands up, either, literally or metaphorically. And they just pretend like everything's okay because the alternative is facing the painful reality that they are now faced with. Yeah. And so that's what the doctors thought. And they asked my parents to come and talk to me and find out how I was, quote, really feeling, end quote, and get to the bottom of it and get me to admit that I was really scared or angry or, depressed or whatever these emotions were that I was covering up. And my dad came in and explained the doctor's prognosis and their concerns. And he asked me how I was really feeling. And I looked at him and I said, Dad, I thought you knew me better than that. And poor guy, his face is red. He's like, his eyes are welled up. He's trying not to cry. And I could tell he was very concerned, but I said, Dad, remember, I live my life by the 5-minute rule. And this was something I learned in my Cutco sales training about a year and a half prior. And I said, Dad, remember the 5-minute rule says, when things go wrong, it's okay to be negative, but not for more than 5 minutes. There's no value in dwelling on something that is out of our control, whether it happened 5 decades ago, 5 days ago, 5 hours ago, 5 minutes ago. And I said, Dad, I was in a car accident 2 weeks ago. My 5 minutes is up. I can't change that I was in a car accident, but I get to choose how I experience my recovery. And I've decided that it would make the most sense to be the happiest and the most grateful that I've ever been while I go through the most difficult time in my life. And for anybody listening, I'd love for you to pause and think about that for a second. Like what is a circumstance in your life that has caused you pain or causes you pain? Because we think it's the thing with the circumstance, the challenge, the adversity, that the pain, we think that's what's causing us pain, but it's not the thing outside of us. It's our response internally to the thing, whatever that thing is, whatever that challenge is. So it has very little to do with what's going on around us and everything to do with what's going on inside of us. And here's really the kind of the foundation of the lesson, and that is that every negative emotion that you have ever felt in your life or could ever feel is self-created. And it is self-created by our resistance to our reality. In other words, when something happens, to the degree that we wish it didn't happen, to the degree that we push against it, we resist it, we deem it unfair, unjust, bullshit, whatever you want to call it, determines the degree of emotional pain that we create for ourselves. And the opposite of resistance is acceptance. So that means the key to being free from emotional pain, and I'm telling you, you literally can, this unlocks the door to what I call emotional freedom, which is freedom from emotional pain. And the key is acceptance. So once I decided I can't change that I was in a car accident, and if the doctors are right and I'm in a wheelchair for the rest of my life, then I'm in a wheelchair for the rest of my life. And I can either choose to be the most happiest, grateful human being on the planet in a wheelchair, or I could be a disgruntled victim in that wheelchair. Either way, I'm living in a freaking wheelchair, and I can either be happy because of life, or I can be depressed. And so, again, if you're listening, what is your wheelchair? What is that circumstance that causes you emotional pain in your life, whether it's currently happening, it happened yesterday, or it happened when you were a kid, but that you deemed unfair, you deemed unjust, and so therefore you think that you have to resist it. And I'm here to tell you that whether you're hit head on by a drunk driver and told you'll never walk again, you're diagnosed with cancer and you're given a 30% chance of living, or you hit traffic in the morning when you don't want to hit traffic, the key to emotional freedom is unconditional acceptance of your life as it is, not wishing it were any different than it can be, but making it the way you want it to be. See, that's an important distinction. This isn't where you throw your hands up and go, well, I can't change it. Everything in life is as it is, and I'm just going to accept it. No. Change what you can change. Accept what you can't. And a real easy distinction around that is anything that's ever happened to you in the past, unless you're Marty McFly with a DeLorean, you can't go back in time and change it. So the only intelligent choice that we have is to accept it fully and be at peace with it. And then when you're at peace, you can choose the emotions that will best serve you in any given set of circumstances.
Love the DeLorean reference for starters. No, I think that's so powerful, man. And I wanted to dive just one point on there. For those who, I mean, it's you practice. This is a practice, right? It's not something that's going to happen overnight.
No. In fact, I actually made, and I made when I first had this realization kind of after the car accident, I came up with these 3 words, which were kind of in tune with that 5-minute rule that I mentioned. And the 3 words are can't change it. Yep. And whenever I would have something happen and I'd find myself upset over it, again, whether it was traffic, sitting in traffic going, oh no, damn it, not today. I got to be on time. I want to be late. Traffic. I don't want traffic right now. And I would realize, wait, I'm creating emotional pain over the pace of the cars in front of me. That doesn't make sense. Like, well, I'm stuck in the car for 30 minutes. Either way, I can either enjoy those 30 minutes or I can be stressed out. In fact, the way I like to say it is that in life, and this is where the acceptance thing makes the difference, is if you resist, you're stressed out. If you accept, you can be blissed out, right? So you can choose to live every moment of life, whether it's in traffic or sitting at home or in your office or at work or at a funeral, whatever. You can be stressed out or you can be blissed out, and that's a choice that we all have.
I love that. I stressed out or blissed out. I'm going to put that on my wall, Hal. Yeah, I love it, man. I love it. So, like I said, for people who haven't, who don't have this mastered yet, what are some things that you recommend? And this probably dives into a bit on just your book, The Miracle Morning, but what are some things that people can do every day to essentially nurture this skill set or this muscle so that when things do go wrong, they can call on it the way you did?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great question. And whatever we focus on becomes our reality. If you focus on all the bad in the world, like if all you do all day is watch the news, you're going to be like, man, our planet's falling apart and our government's a mess. You know what I mean? Like, and that's all could be true, but life is as good or as bad as you choose to, see it as, right? And in fact, here's a kind of a little tangent, which is people that complain a lot, people that you maybe call negative people, they often justify their complaining by saying, I'm not negative, I'm just realistic. And I would say to those people, really? How is it any more realistic for you to choose to focus on, think about, dwell on, talk about negative things in the world, in your life that make you feel bad? How is that an ounce more realistic than for us to choose to focus on, think about, talk about, dwell on all of the positive things in life? Because both are equally realistic. One is not more than the other. Life is, the world is a mess and the world is amazing. And there are people that are selfish and greedy and negative and kill people. And there are people that are fantastic and amazing and selfless and give of their selves, right? Both are real. Yeah. But you got to choose what reality do you want to live in. And it doesn't mean that you deny the negative or, whatever, but it means that you accept it as it is. You make peace with it, but then you put your energy and attention into the things that make you feel good. And so the way to condition that is through daily focus. And the simplest way to do that is daily affirmations. And that's one of the 6 practices of the Miracle Morning is affirmations. And I'll give a quick, so affirmations have a bad rap and they have been ineffective for people, or people just dismissed them as even something that would work for, I think, a couple of reasons. Number one is, if you remember the Saturday Night Live in the 90s, I think it was the 90s, there was a long time ago, there was a skit, Stuart Smalley, it was a recurring skit on SNL. And Stuart Smalley would look in a mirror, and it was called, the show, his little show was called like Positive Affirmations with Stuart Smalley. And he'd look in the mirror and he would go, with a list, he would say, I'm good enough, I'm smart enough, and doggone it, people like me. So he really kind of made a mockery of affirmations, right? Yeah. So that's kind of where a lot of the world and our pop culture was introduced to affirmations. But then if you actually dive in, like with a lot of these self-help gurus out there, they teach affirmations in one of 2 ways. Number one is to lie to yourself, and number 2 is to use this kind of flowery passive language. And neither of these are effective. So people have heard this, either they've dismissed it from the start or they try it and it doesn't do anything for them. So they go, affirmations don't work. So when I say lying to yourself, what I mean is one of the most popular form of affirmations is I am statements. It's taught that, the 2 most powerful words in the English language are I am, because they shape your identity. So whatever you want to be, just put the words I am in front of them and then affirm it every single day until you trick yourself into believing it. So you want to be a millionaire, just say, I am a millionaire, I am a millionaire, I am a millionaire, over and over and over again until you believe it, and then you can become it, right? So theoretically, that's great, but the problem is lying to ourselves is never the optimum strategy, right? If you say, I am a millionaire, but you're not a millionaire, then your truth is going to say, no, you're not, every time, and you're fighting with truth anytime you affirm something that isn't true. Yeah. So lying to yourself is never going to be the optimum strategy. The second is flowery passive language. I'll give you an example of a financial affirmation, a money affirmation that's been taught, for I don't know how long, decades. And it's money flows to me effortlessly and in abundance. Now, the reason some people like saying that affirmation is if you're poor and you say that and you close your eyes and you smile and you imagine money flowing to you effortlessly in abundance, it feels good. So people might do that affirmation and they go, God, I feel good, like my money problems will be over soon. But what I would love to do is I'd love to take a focus group of people that just say that affirmation every day. And then at the end of a year go, how much more money do you have? They go, well, none, but I feel really good when I say my affirmation, right? See, for me, I want results. And I think most people want results. Like I want an affirmation that gets me more money if that's a money affirmation. I want, if I'm trying to get in better shape, I want an affirmation where when I look in the mirror after saying that affirmation for 2 weeks, I'm actually in better shape.
Yeah.
And so the way that affirmations, the way that I teach them in the Miracle Morning and the way that I think they're a lot more effective is you've got to base them in reality and base them in truth and base them in action. So so the way that there's kind of 4 parts to creating affirmations. And so around what I just taught, your question was, how does somebody embody this philosophy? And it's you write it into an affirmation, you read it every single day, and then it goes from being an idea that you heard on a podcast one day that you completely forgot, like most ideas that most people hear on most podcasts because they never write them down.
Yep.
It goes from being an idea on a podcast to being something that's ingrained in your subconscious and part of who you are and your new reality and how you think. So here are the 4 things. Number 1 is affirm what you are committed to. So not what you want, not your dream or your goal. Now, granted, yes, it's what you want, your dream and your goal, but you're affirming it you're using language that says, I am committed to blank. So instead of saying, I am a millionaire, you say, I am committed to becoming a millionaire. And of course, you can get real specific and go by, the end of 2019, right? So number 1 is, what are you committed to? Number 2 is, why is that important to you? So we've all heard, Simon Sinek talk about the power of why, and that, the why is what gives us leverage to do what's necessary to achieve what we want, even when we don't feel like it, because our why is strong enough, right? If your why is rooted in a deep purpose of, your purpose or supporting your family or whatever, right? Now your goals have leverage. The third part is what you're committed to doing to ensure that you achieve what it is that you are affirming, right?
Yep.
So what's the action that you're going to take? So if you want to become a millionaire by blank date because you want to give your family, financial freedom, well, what are you committed to doing? And you might not know the specifics. So when you first write the affirmation might say, I'm committed to spending 1 hour a day, 5 days a week on figuring out how to become a millionaire, right? That's fine. That's fine. And your affirmations, as you learn, grow, and evolve, your affirmations should but they should grow and evolve as well. Like my affirmations are always, they're done on my phone. They're done in an app called Google Keep, and I edit them all the time. I mean, anytime I'm reading an affirmation, I'm like, oh, I just thought of something else, or ooh, I thought of a better way to say that, or I don't like the way that sounds, or a lot of times I'm reading a book and I'll read a quote and I'll be like, ooh, that really is in alignment with what I've been affirming every day around being the best husband that I can be. And so then I'll go and I'll update my affirmations. So I have affirmations around being a dad, being a husband, being cancer-free for the rest of my life, my business, et cetera, my fitness, you name it. I've got affirmations in every area of my life. And the fourth part is the win. So once you've affirmed what you're committed to achieving or creating in your life, why that's important to you, what specifically you will do to ensure that you eventually reach that objective. And then the fourth part is when. When will you take that action? So again, I mentioned if you say I'm going to 1 hour a week, 5 days a week from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m., right? Or whatever it is. So you can take any goal that you have, any dream, any objective, and you can filter it through that 4-part formula. You can create affirmations that are rooted in truth, that reinforce your commitment, that clarify the action that's necessary to get there, and then when specifically you're committed to taking those actions. And now you're using affirmations in a way that are really keeping you focused and on track to achieve everything that you want in your life.
I love that, Hal, and I appreciate you going into so much detail on your own process. Do you feel like affirmations, I've always felt like the more I focus my attention on an affirmation, I start to notice or subconsciously attract some of the results or some of those quotes or some of these observations. How do you feel like the universe sort of responds to affirmations, and why do you think that's so powerful?
Yeah, that's something that, that the esoteric kind of like The Secret, for example, the law of attraction, all of that. I do believe in that. It's just a little harder to explain, right? It's a little less tangible.
Yep.
I just will. So here's one of my favorite quotes that kind of speaks to that is the harder you work, the luckier you get, right? Yep. And I find that to be true, that when you fully commit to a goal and you give it everything you have, regardless of the results, even if you're not on track for the goal, you put forth extraordinary effort, you maintain unwavering faith, and you give it everything you have, even if you don't reach the goal. Well, first of all, more often than not, you reach the goal.
Yep.
When you don't reach the goal, there tends to be an underlying reason for that. Sometimes it might be that, I needed to learn how to not make that mistake again so that I never make it, right? Like I made a mistake that prevented me from reaching my goal, but the value of being aware of that mistake and learning it and then applying it for the rest of your life, right, is probably, many times more valuable than if you hit that one goal. Like I hit one goal. If you learn a lesson that serves you for the rest of your life, there's a lot of value in that. So I've just found that the harder I work, the luckier I get, the more I maintain unwavering faith that I can achieve the things that I'm working towards, and I put forth that extraordinary effort. It's like forces beyond what we would ever be able to predict come to our aid and make miracles happen, if you will. In fact, I have I wrote myself a check. I just looked at this yesterday. It's on my on my vision board. It's on my gratitude board now. But I wrote myself a check for an advance, for $100,000 advance from a major publisher. So that was my dream, was to get a $100,000 advance from a major publisher. And if I would have gotten that, I would have made very little money after that, right?
Mm-hmm.
With a major publisher, you don't get much money after. But back when I wrote that check to myself, it was 10 years ago, it was a dream. Well, that book that I was referring to, which is The Miracle Morning, has earned, I think, over $2 million in royalties. I self-published it, and it's earned over $2 million. So I have that up there as a reminder. It's kind of like that Garth Brooks song that's some of God's greatest gifts are unanswered prayers, right?
Yep.
So it's just a reminder not to get fixated on what we think that we want, and to always stay open that there may be something even better. So it's up there. So whenever I look at my goals, I try to not, because sometimes we limit ourselves by our goals, right? Like we set goals that we're confident that we can achieve, and that creates actually a little bit of a box around us and some limitations that, well, that's my ceiling, right? And so that is a reminder to me that the universe or life or whatever God, whatever higher power you believe in, that there is more available to us than we even imagine is possible, because most of us have very limiting beliefs and our thinking is very limited based on our past experience. So we can only imagine so big. It's one of the hardest things to do is to see ourselves as better than we've ever been before.
Yeah.
We suffer from, in the Miracle Morning book, I call it Rearview mirror syndrome, where we tend to have this subconscious, this rearview mirror in our subconscious, and it constantly is looking backward to see, who was I before? Well, how do I usually respond to this? And we tend to stay the same in our little box because we just see ourselves as we've always been.
Yeah.
And so that check, that little I wrote to myself up on my board reminds me that, hey, more is possible for me, more is possible for every single one of you than you have yet to even imagine.
I love that. Thank you for that, Hal. I've always felt like looking backwards. If you look backwards with a sense of gratitude, you tend to find more strength than suffering. What are your thoughts on gratitude and how it plays a part in this entire sort of mindset routine that you've brilliantly created for yourself and the world?
Yeah, gratitude is I think for me it's the center, it's the centerpiece of my life. It's how I show up to everything, right?
Yeah.
So when I got cancer, I was thanking God for the cancer, saying I don't understand why I got this. I don't understand, I don't fully get what the plan is here for me. However, because I maintain unwavering faith that everything that everything can and typically will work out, I am grateful for whatever growth I am going to experience from this cancer. And so you think about it, I would imagine that most people probably aren't grateful when they when they get cancer and they're given a 30% chance of living, right? And you have to realize that's a choice. For me, it's a conscious choice to be grateful for everything in my life. And the reality is, the bigger the adversity, typically the bigger the advantage, right? Typically, the harder whatever you have to overcome, the more difficult it is. Well, then the better you become by overcoming it, right? On the other side of our adversity is a better version of ourselves. It's a version of ourselves that we typically haven't even met yet, unless we've already overcome an adversity, the similar or the same, right? So for me, gratitude is the lens that I try to view the past, the present, and the future through.
God, man, you're speaking my language right now.
Awesome.
I love that. I mean, we've, even with our own, we essentially teach the Miracle Morning with a coffee routine. And, for me, every time I'm grinding my coffee, gratitude ends up being the one thing that I focus on for 5 to 6 minutes. Nice. And I can't tell you how much that changes the course of the day. It changes the course of every conversation I have. I just feel better about life. And you're right, it is a conscious choice to feel grateful. And I want to segue that into, your own personal routine. So what are some of your non-negotiables every day? Like some of your daily non-negotiables that no matter what you're doing, you're a sought after speaker, and I imagine you travel a lot. So whether you're traveling or whether you're at home, what's one thing that you try to focus on every day so that you can be your best?
Yeah. Expressing gratitude to my family is probably my number one non-negotiable. So no matter where I'm at in the world or on the road, is making sure my kids know and my wife knows how much I love them and I'm grateful. And it's to the point where my daughter she's like, I know, Dad, you are grateful for me and you love me. But when she's, 18, 19 years old and she's alone in her college dorm and, she's scared or lonely or hurt or whatever, she'll never question, whether or not her dad loves her to death. Super grateful for her. So that's really, that's one non-negotiable. And then I'd say the other is healthy eating. Healthy eating has been a non-negotiable for me for, I don't know, 10 years or something. I've eaten healthy for a long time, which is why when I got my cancer, I was like, what? How is that even possible? Like I ate the healthiest diet I know is humanly possible, plant-based diet or whatever. So that's another non-negotiable for me, which it makes it really hard if I give a speech in like North Dakota or like a really small area, it's like Applebee's is like the healthiest choice they have, which is not super healthy. And then last is, I would almost say first, but is the Miracle Morning. And for me, I've been doing the Miracle Morning. I probably averaged 5 out of 7 days for the last 2009, it's about 8 years. And so, that is that's one of my biggest non-negotiables is doing the Miracle Morning. And specifically the Miracle Morning is made up of 6 practices. And there's an acronym for those 6 practices. The acronym is SAVERS, SAVERS, or these are the lifesavers, as in the 6 practices meant to save you on missing out on a life of your full potential. And the savers are, I'll run through them real quick. The first S is for silence. So that's meditation and or prayer. So instead of starting your day, rushing out the door, chaos, right? You start with silence, and you have that peaceful, purposeful silence that allows you to get grounded. It allows some of your best ideas to come in to play. It allows you to tap into the infinite intelligence, et cetera, et cetera. The A is for affirmations, and we went very in depth on those, so don't need to say much about that. The V is for visualization, and I will just say real quick, similar to affirmations, visualization has been taught, I think, in an ineffective way where these self-help gurus, which I probably am considered one of those, I don't know, but those of the past would teach you to visualize the perfect end result. And meaning the perfect end result being, if you want to be a millionaire, picture yourself in a mansion, right? And make a vision board and put pictures of the mansion and the Ferrari and all that on your vision board. Well, the problem is that they've actually done research where studies have shown it's actually counterproductive to do that, because what happens is you convince your subconscious that those things are going to happen. And they might not happen. Kind of like money flows to me effortlessly and in abundance. Like, no, it doesn't. You have to actually put effort forth, right? You have to work typically. Most people that are millionaires, unless they inherited it, they actually had to work their butt off, to generate that kind of wealth. They had to generate value for the world, and that was reciprocated in financial gain. So visualization, visualizing the end result, like crossing the finish line of a marathon or whatever, there's value in that, in that it helps you believe it's possible. So if you don't believe you could run a marathon, but you start visualizing every day you running a marathon, well, you'll start to actually convince your subconscious that you can run that marathon because you see it. Yeah. But you can't end your visualization there. You've got to bring it to the present day. The most valuable, if you want to run a marathon, for example, the most valuable thing you can visualize is not crossing the finish line. Yes, visualize that for like a minute every day and see it and kind of go, okay, yeah, I feel it. It's real. I can do it. But that's like a minute, literally 60 seconds of visualizing the end result. And then the best bang for your buck with visualization is visualizing yourself lacing up your running shoes that morning. Visualize yourself running out the front door. See yourself with a smile on your face. Especially if you're like me and you hate running. I hate running. So when I was training I did an ultra marathon, I visualized myself enjoying the run. Yeah. And what that did is it created the emotional experience in my mind and body during my miracle morning. Then when it was actually time to go for that run, I was that much more compelled to run because in my mind, I had already created, and in my imagination, that it was a pleasant experience, that I actually went for a run that day and that I enjoyed it. Yes. And that got me to run. So if you can use that strategy of visualization for sales calls, for athletics, for, engaging with your kids. Imagine your kid. Guess what? Kids don't listen. So visualize your kids not listening and then visualize how you're going to handle that in a calm, peaceful, optimal way that benefits your kids and you, not out of anger or emotion, right? So you can use visualization for anything. And then to wrap this up, the E is for exercise. And I'm not saying that you need to go to the gym in the morning. If you go to the gym in the afternoon or whatever, that's fine. But do 7-minute workout. It's a great app, 7 minutes. Mm-hmm. It gets your blood flowing. In the Miracle Morning book, I teach a 6-minute Miracle Morning where 1 minute for each of these practices. And like exercise, if you do 1 minute of jumping jacks in the morning, you'll feel like 3 times more energized, alert, awake. You'll have more clarity of thinking because of the blood and oxygen that gets to your brain from 60 seconds of exercise. Yep. The R in Savers is for reading, and I believe we're all one self-help book away or one business book away from learning any idea that we need that can, set us free or to the next level. And the final S is for scribing, which is a fancy word for writing, and that's essentially journaling. I personally use a journaling app called the 5-Minute Journal app. That's my favorite journaling app. And I'll wrap this up, Raj, by saying this. Robert Kiyosaki, who wrote the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad, that sold 26 million copies, so one of the most successful authors of all time. Yeah. He reached out to me and said, I've read the Miracle Morning 3 times. It's changed my life. I do it every day, which blew my mind. It still blows my mind when I say it. Yeah. But he interviewed me on the Rich Dad radio show. And at the end of the interview, he said it better than I had ever said it or heard it. And he said, Hal, what makes the Miracle Morning so powerful is the 6 practices that are the savers. He said those are the 6 most timeless, proven personal development practices known to man. And he said, and I would be willing to bet that just about every successful person on the planet swears by at least one of the savers. He said, but I had never heard of or met anyone that did even 2 or 3, even 3 of them, let alone all 6 of them. And he said, that's why the Miracle Morning, I believe, is so life-changing, why it's changed my life, why I do it every day, is because any one of those 6 practices can transform your life. But when you're harnessing the benefits and the power of all 6 of the most proven personal development practices in the history of humanity, he said that's the ultimate morning. And of course, I'm paraphrasing what he said, but it's essentially what he said is, that's the ultimate morning ritual. And so I would, like I said, can't say it better than Robert did, but I think that really does encapsulate why the Miracle Morning is so powerful, because all 6 practices, and you can do them in any order you want. The book has a chapter on customizing the Miracle Morning to fit your lifestyle. And you can do them in as little as 6 minutes a day. And that's not a gimmick. That's legitimately in 6 minutes a day. And then most people do 30 to 60 minutes a day, but anywhere in between, can be effective.
Hal, I just want to give you a big hug right now. Just pretend a big hug coming your way, man.
Hug, man.
And for everybody listening, I've read The Miracle Morning. I'm a fan. I actually implement. I do my best to implement all of them every day. But I do. I think about 4 out of 7 days is about a consistent practice for me. Nice. But regardless, I mean, especially exercise. Exercise in the morning is almost like my non-negotiable. It changes my life. But no, Hal, this was so amazing, man. And I have I think one final question that I wanted to sort of ask you. You seem like somebody who's so rooted in your why. You've achieved so much in your life, in the midst of all your successes, achievements. How do you stay grounded in that why? And how do you do it so consistently over time?
A big part of it, I think, is that I've affirmed it for so long, right? To go back to affirmations. I mean, my affirmations are, you become them. In fact, that's how I discovered affirmations, is I was Googling best personal development practices. And I came across an interview where Ellen DeGeneres was interviewing Will Smith, and she asked him how he became one of the highest paid actors in Hollywood. And he said self-affirmations. He said, and I think he said he was 15 when he started doing them. But he said everything that I am today, everything that I have today, everything that I do today, he said, I've been affirming it for, decades. And he said, and when you affirm it over and over and over, you start to live into your affirmations. So for me, my why, my purpose, all of that's all in my affirmation. So let me actually clarify. When I gave you that formula, the 4 ways to create an affirmation, that's kind of the basis. But I have affirmations that just remind me, like my first affirmation is smile. My life is perfect.
I love that.
That's my first affirmation. It has nothing to do with a goal. It has nothing to do with, right? There's no why. Yeah. It's just right. But every morning, it reminds me because usually you wake up with like stress from the day before. It's like it's hanging on you, and different. It's either in your shoulders or it's in your mind, right? It's in your spirit. There's some sort of we often take stress with us from one day to the next, and that is kind of like an instant, just like, dude, hey, by the way, this is life. Smile. It's perfect. You're alive. You made it. Right? It's great, right? That's how I start the day, and that's my first affirmation. So I just wanted to tell everyone that an affirmation, that formula isn't the only way to do affirmations, but it's the majority of my affirmations start with that formula, and then they kind of grow and expand, and and then I add dessert to the meal, and whatever. But yeah, so that's how I stay rooted and grounded. Is I affirm every day. I remind myself every day, and that is, by the way, affirmations in the simplest form. All an affirmation is a reminder of what matters most to you, right? So I have an affirmation that talks about that my mission in my marriage is to make my wife's life amazing every single day. Do something to make her life amazing. Now, am I perfect at it? Of course not. But I affirm it every day. I read it, and like last night, for example. I knew she had a busy day, so normally she makes dinner and and puts the kids to bed at night. I made dinner, and I put the kids, or most of dinner, and put the kids to bed, and did a bunch of stuff. So that was my way of making her life amazing. Sometimes it's taking her out on a date. Sometimes it's a lot of times it's just doing the dishes when she's tired or whatever.
Yeah.
Right? Putting the kids to bed. But here's the thing. If I didn't affirm every day that I was committed to make my wife's life amazing, to do at least one thing that day, guess what I'd forget to do more often than not? Make her life amazing.
Yep.
I'd forget, right?
Yep.
So in the simplest form, an affirmation is a reminder of what matters most to you. And when you read that every day, it doesn't drop from your consciousness. You don't forget it. You don't lose sight of it. you stay focused on what matters most to you and focused on doing the things that are required to create the results and the outcomes in your life and in your business that matter most to you.
God, that's so powerful. That's so powerful, especially with you using affirmations for even the simplest things like your own happiness or something that kicks off a feeling of gratitude. Man, I love that. And I know that our audience, for everybody listening here, I hope you've enjoyed the pal that is Hal, and in all of his glory. Hal, I just want to take another moment to say thank you so much for sharing everything you've shared, man. If anyone in our audience, obviously Miracle Morning, you guys can find that on Amazon, but if they wanted to be a part of your world, get in touch with you, I mean, are there any resources that you think, how would somebody be able to find you?
Yeah, my website is my name, Hal Elrod, HALELROD.com. You can get a hold of me through that. And then, but I'd invite everybody to join the Miracle Morning community on Facebook. And it is arguably the most engaged and supportive online community in the world. We have 133,000 members in there now from over 100 countries, and all organic. We don't run Facebook ads. That is every single person in there either has read the Miracle Morning book and they joined because there's an invitation in the book, or a friend said, "Oh my gosh, you have to be part of this group." But it is one of the most beautiful, loving, non-judgmental, supportive communities, online or offline, that I've ever seen. So if you go to the Miracle Morning, or if you go to Facebook, type in the Miracle Morning community, or I think there's a URL that redirects. It's myTMM, so MYTMM as in the Miracle Morning, mytmmcommunity.com. And I encourage everybody to come check that out. And I go in there almost every day and like and love posts and comment and give suggestions and advice. I try to go in there on a daily basis. So,
Hal, I love your light, brother. Thank you for who you are and all the value you continue providing through your resources and just by who you are. I can't say how grateful I am just to be having this conversation with you. And I'm grateful for everything you shared. Thank you, man.
Raj, you're welcome, brother. Thank you for your leadership and making this happen. If it wasn't for you, we would not be having this conversation. So thank you, brother. I appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate that. So everybody, that's a wrap for another episode of the Stay Grounded podcast. Again, I'm your host, Raj Jana, and until next time, stay grounded. Thanks for joining us today on this episode of the Stay Grounded podcast, brought to you by JavaPresse Coffee Company. My name is Raj, and I hope you found this interview helpful as you create your own ways to make daily happiness a priority. If you're interested in learning more about how your morning coffee can turn into a consistent source of joy in your life, visit www.javapresse.com to learn how our products can help you do that, and use the coupon code PODCAST for 10% off your purchase. Again, thanks so much for joining us. Stay grounded.